and welcome. You're watching NewsX and I'm Megha Sharma. There's some information that is coming in. Let's shift our focus to that. Today marks the official implementation of Donald Trump's sweeping new tariffs, which is a move that has already sparked widespread debate and concern around the globe. From London to Beijing to Brasília to Ottawa, media outlets are reporting on the immediate economic and diplomatic impact, analyzing how these tariffs could reshape trade flows, alliances and market dynamics. In Brazil, there are leading outlets that are reporting on the steep 50% tariffs that are hitting coffee, beef and other agricultural exports, with the government responding by offering credit support and redirecting trade towards alternative markets. Analysts also note that these measures may strengthen multilateral alliances like BRICS as nations seek to reduce dependence on US across Europe. British media are now focusing on both the economic fallout and the geopolitical implications, highlighting how countries are adjusting their trade strategies and diversifying supply chains. Let's open up this discussion. Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev is on the telecast with me. Ambassador Sachdev, what is your inference particularly about the short to medium term impact that these tariffs are going to bring to the Indian businesses, the Indian exporters, particularly in the industry and sectors of jewelry and gems, and talk about agricultural produce and talking about shrimp produce, of course talking about fisheries? These are the sectors that are heavily impacted because of the tariffs.
That is true, Megha. Trump, for reasons unbeknown to anyone, has decided to use Ganesh Chaturdashi to usher in Sri Ganesh of his tariff regime, the scaled up 25% extra tariffs, taking the total to 50%, which Nomura has described as a virtual embargo on exports from India of the affected commodities. At 50% tariff, our exports are not going to be viable or competitive in the US market. So we have a major problem to sort out. I think this, let's get granular. Of total $86 billion exported from India last year to United States as merchandise goods, nearly $60 billion are going to be subject now to 50% duties. 26 billion dollars would be exempt. These are electronics and medicines, etc. And a small percentage of about 3 billion is going to be charged to 25% duty. Most observers believe that out of the $60 billion that would be charged to 50% duty, we would have a 70% haircut to our exports, meaning this would be reduced to something like $18 to $20 billion only. So that way we're going to lose something like $40 billion in our market share of United States. This would be about a percentage of our GDP. Not exactly a catastrophe, but still a serious setback. Now, both sides have been slightly quiet on this. They've not, they seem to have no specific exit strategies, and that's what worries me. Thank you.
Right. I also have with me Sharad Kohli. Sharad, there has been, if I could say, a bloodbath at the Sensex today. It's considerably down. How long do you think is going to be the impact? Of course, we've seen GST cuts that have been initiated by the government. There has been a big hint that has been given by the Prime Minister earlier, a few days ago, talking about a big tax cut bonanza for Diwali. So these are all measures that are being taken to overcome the backlash that is going to be faced by the markets, backlash that is going to be faced by the businesses within the country?
Good evening, Megha. Good evening to my fellow panelists and NewsX viewers. Well, I think I would like to take cues from what Ambassador Sachdev said. An inauspicious day. Normally, Ganesh Chaturthi is auspicious, but I think President Trump, this is going to prove very, very inauspicious, and I think Lord Ganesha is going to do otherwise for him. As far as the impact is concerned, well, I think stock markets today are closed. But they did react yesterday. Obviously, there was a bit of a knee-jerk reaction, I would say, because there were a lot of people who were expecting that probably, President Trump might do a flip-flop and might turn it around. Somehow that did not happen. So the market reacted. The market will come back, Megha. We don't have to worry. What is very comforting is that Government of India stands with the exporters. Government of India stands for national interest. Government of India doesn't want to compromise the sovereignty of this country. So therefore, there is no need to worry. Yes, about 45 to $50 billion are going to be impacted. America has very smartly left out APIs, pharmaceuticals, mobile phones and tablets because it needs it very, very direly. So therefore, it very, very smartly left it out. This will be out of the tariff range, and the rest would be, when it comes to leather, footwear, textiles, gems and jewelry, marine products, they are all getting impacted. There's no doubt about that. But the GST reforms, which Prime Minister has announced from the ramparts of Red Fort, is a big step because it is going to boost consumption. Two of the slabs going, practically everything is going to get cheaper. Practically. If we leave out a few items, my calculation says almost 90% of the items are going to get cheaper. So I think those exporters and those manufacturing units have got an incentive to probably start selling locally. Let's see a very interesting aspect, Megha, I'll mention here. When Atmanirbhar as a slogan was given at the time of COVID, if you remember, Prime Minister first spoke about Atmanirbharta at the time of COVID. Then he was referring to imports, like what we face with China, fertilizers, tunnel boring machines, rare earth magnets. When China tried to strangulate, in terms of supplies of those three items. So when Prime Minister spoke of Atmanirbharta earlier, it was imports. But this time when Prime Minister speaks about Swadeshi, he's also including exports. Because what we are now facing, immediate problem on the table is exports. And there is a place in South India called Tirupur, where 12,000 crores of textiles are exported to America. 1.5 lakh and mostly females. I've been to those factories. Mostly females work for those factories. So I think export-oriented units which are completely focused on America, they will probably face a temporary bump. But on 2nd of April, when President Trump first started this whole drama, I think
Okay, I'm going to come back to you, Sharad. There is a network problem and we'll try to rectify that. But Patikrit is also on the telecast with me. Patikrit, again, there have been international media outlets, news agencies who have been tracking every step of the way the tariff war that has been waged by President Trump. And there is not a single country that has been left unimpacted, from United Kingdom to the Latin American countries to South Korea, Japan, China, India, South Asia. They have all been hit, and they are at this point of time looking at greener pastures. They are wanting to build supply chains, alternatives that they find to be attractive for their produce to be exported. And therefore, a statement that was also made by Xi Jinping, the Premier of China, that it is the need of the hour for the global South to come together and reduce its dependence on America. How is this going to work for countries that are fighting the tariff war with America in the long term?
Good evening to everyone. First and foremost, we should be very careful about not fear mongering. We have to be very categorical and tell to the audience at large that at most what is getting impacted is merely a 1% of India's GDP and 5% of India's exports. So we have gone through phases when we had economic sanctions imposed on us after the nuclear test we had in 1998, when our economy was far weaker. And even then we withered it all and came out as a stronger nation. So this time, let's not presume that the skies are falling on us. Yes, there are challenges. Yes, there are problems. But the alternate of not having this challenge would have been to open up market of poultry, dairy, fisheries, and agriculture, which would have ended up 15 to 20 crore of our farmers losing their livelihood. So that is the picture. It is important for us to tell to the whole country that the impact is at most 40 to 45 or 50 billion dollar of a country whose total export merchandise and service together is around 800 billion dollars. So we have the capacity to absorb it. Secondly, yes, I think we should ideally have a template of an 80-20 ratio. 80% of the focus should be, 80% of the consumption should always be within the country. And that is how you should reduce your dependence on Western or external whims. I think we are fortunate that we are not an export-oriented economy. Our entire export as percentage of GDP is barely around 20 to 22%. Secondly, I think this is also a time for wake up, and there are work being done not just by the government, but I think the industry is also working towards ensuring that they diversified, they de-risk their entire supply chain, including that of exports. And you would see certain shoots, green shoots that one can witness in terms of many of the countries then trying to have a symbiotic relationship with each other. Many other countries who are equally impacted produce certain things that we need. And similarly, there are many things that we produce that they need. But that's one part of the story. We must understand there is a huge divergence between Wall Street and White House. The Wall Street is heavily invested in India. The Wall Street keeps on investing in India. The Wall Street wants to invest more in India. It is not that there is a boycott of investments happening in India. Even now, the GE has given a commitment of all the, engines that they're supposed to supply. And the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense was here last week giving that assurance. So you see the State Department is saying one thing, the White House says completely opposite of that. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity to make BRICS stronger. Yes, I strongly believe also, my last point, many of the American companies, what they're doing is that they're giving deep discounts on the markup price to absorb this tariff.
Yeah.
They're hoping that it is a short-term matter. But if it elongates beyond 3 months, then the impact will not be on India alone. It will be on American consumers and American companies as well, because changing supply line or supply chain is not easy for the American companies either. Those companies who have invested in the Indian textile industry and procuring, they just can't suddenly go up from here to another country. So it's far more complex than it appears, but it is not a doomsday.
It's very interesting to note, and as was mentioned by Sharad as well, it's a very smart, convenient move that has been made by the US administration. Pharmaceuticals, smartphones and oil and gas are exempt from the 50% tariffs. The biggest grouse that has been raised by Donald Trump has been that why is it that India imports oil from Russia, thereby quote unquote fueling the Ukraine war. If the oil and gas has been exempt from the 50% tariffs, which means Europe and America will continue to buy petroleum products from India. This is the dichotomy that India faces in the face of the duplicity and the sham that has been perpetuated by the US President. Alok Mehta, how do we deal with it?
Ganesh is for wisdom. He symbolizes the wisdom. So I think the wisdom, we are more optimistic, what our guest already told you about. We feel that we want to be a self-reliance. We can't be depend on the Americans. At that time, I remember the Lal Gehu, Mega, you have not seen, I think you must have not seen at the time, because in 70s, Ration Dukan, people used to go and get the American food. Now we are not, we are dependent on our agriculture, we depend on our own self-reliance in the defense sector, in technology also. I remember Rajiv Gandhi was refused by the supercomputer when I also accompanied with a media group at the time, and then Ronald Reagan was the president. But even then, now we have the best computers in our cycle. Even America, they are dependent on our software people. So I think these kind of people, I think, don't think that will dictate us. Certainly, there will be problem, but maybe after a few weeks, you will see again he will change. Trump, if he can change for his own, Elon Musk and everybody, maybe he will again think that what is happening, what he is doing all over the world. they are looking for India. Then the Chinese Silk Route. I just wanted to mention about the China you also mentioned. Prime Minister Narendra Modi going there, maybe because the alliance will be with the Russians and the Chinese, and they are discussing at least to counter the super big powers, all the three powers, and the Chinese. We have the problems earlier, but you know, for number of things we can have good business with China also. So at least the American will also understand that how we can fight, because we can. In India is such a big country, big market. With the China tourism or other sector also, the consumption is there. Same thing with India. What our guest already told you, that India consumer, if the tax will be relieved, then more consumption will be in India too. So in otherwise, the African countries, you see the Southeast Asia countries or number of the Gulf countries, even one can do business from Dubai. You know, Pakistan, sometimes they try to get Indian, because we have no trade relation nowadays, so they get from Dubai. So we have good relations with Saudi Arab and UAE both. So we can have business from there too. So I think there are a number of ways which Indian feel and businessmen also know how we can compete. Certainly, as you have mentioned about the American press and all, because they want to create a fear. They want to see, okay, because the Western media, somehow they are biased also against India. So they will propagate these kind of things that, oh, India will suffer a lot because of the tariff. Because this is the American propaganda. Otherwise, you see, American NRI, they also understand. They depend, the American administration also depend on the NRIs. How they will cope, how long they will continue with the bad relations with India. So this is and he mentioned that it's difficult to deal with Narendra Modi. It was a quote by Trump himself. So he will understand that how difficult to fight with Prime Minister Narendra Modi as a superpower as India.
Right, absolutely. Sharad, I will come back to you. I do want to understand from you now, how does India offset the losses it is potentially going to face in wake of the 50% tariffs? Is there a real possibility and a probability that we'll be able to find markets in other countries across the globe? Yes, in fact, I was talking to the Danish ambassador to India. Denmark at this point in time has the rotating presidency of the European Union Council, and they are in fact quite gung-ho that by the end of this year there is in fact going to be an FTA that has been languishing for the past several years to be signed between European Union and India. We already saw just a couple of months ago there was an FTA that was signed between India and United Kingdom, which had been languishing again for years together. So do you think there has been an organic push towards signing FTAs between India and other countries, whether in Europe or in Latin America or in ASEAN?
See, Megha, we have already signed FTAs with UAE, we've signed with Australia, we've signed with the UK recently. And you know what happens is when a supply chain shift happens like this, like what other panelists were also speaking. So what you need to do is, for example, I'll take an example and it'll be easy for viewers to understand. Suppose this factory I spoke of, or this city I spoke of, Tirupur in South India, they are customizing their machines, their cutouts, their labor is trained to manufacture apparels which are being worn in America. All you need to do is to work on two aspects. You need to align your costs. Suppose we do an FTA with Europe, or we are exploring other markets like Latin America, like Middle East, like Far East, like Southeast. We have to customize our products to them. So we have to work on two things. One is the cost factor. The other is the quality factor. You match the cost. This is what China has done. You match the cost, you match the quality. The moment you are able to achieve and cross these two bridges, you won the war, because all you need, this is all they need. You're able to give them what they want at the price they want. I think it just simply solves the problem. So that is one step, that looking for other markets. Second step is also boost your domestic consumption. If you are an export-oriented unit, fine. You've been export-oriented unit for all these years. You made your factories in that manner. But you can always customize and make sure that this is the world's biggest middle class here. To my calculation, Megha, Middle class size is now 60 crores, although the official calculation says 40 crores. But we forget that 25 crore neo middle class, which moved from multidimensional poverty index. So a size of 60 to 65 crores, where will you get this market? So they can focus on local market. And the third step is government support. I think government has already committed support. Every day we are hearing a statement being made by the minister or the prime minister that we are standing with the exporters. There are export promotion councils being formed. I would like to mention here, there is already an export promotion council called AEPC. It's called Apparel Export Promotion Council, and for decades this council has been working for the betterment of export of garment or apparel exporters. Likewise, we can form export promotion councils, which government is already contemplating. You will see in the next few weeks these EPCs, they will be there. So they will promote the products, they will promote exports. So I think with government support, boosting domestic consumption, and looking for alternate markets, for me these are the three steps which can help you come out of this so-called crisis, although I don't consider this as a crisis, because as I said, starting from 2nd April when this drama had started, the exporters had already preparing. I've been in touch with exporters from Ludhiana, from Gurugram, from Tirupur, from Surat in Gujarat. These are the hubs from where a lot of export happens. I've been in touch with them and they all told me we are prepared. We are already looking for alternate markets. So I really don't see, I think this is the three-point agenda which I would like to put through NewsX today. And if you follow these three, you will come out of this sooner than later, Megha.
Okay. All right. Ambassador Sachdev, coming to you now, talking about the tariffs, do you think these have been imposed, especially the 25% punitive tariffs that have been imposed by Trump, have any logic to them? And what are those reasons that have pushed Trump to impose those tariffs on India? Are they purely economical? Do they make economic sense to the United States of America? Or have certain things irked US President Donald Trump? Is it the closeness to Pakistan and hosting the red carpet lunches for Asim Munir have got anything to do with it?
Thank you. That's an important issue, although it's largely theoretical and of academic interest. Let me begin by something that has not yet been mentioned in the discourse here and elsewhere. Americans were largely responsible for China's rise over past half a century. Americans, after Nixon's visit in '71, invested heavily in China to break up the communist Comintern, split China from Russia, end the Vietnam War, and American corporations invested billions of dollars in the factories that produced goods for the United States market. Americans also transferred technology, and there was nothing that Chinese could do that could anger Americans. Within weeks of Tiananmen Square massacre in 1990, American NSA paid a secret visit to China, etc., etc. So now Americans have learned their lessons, that they have given rise to a Frankenstein monster over past 50 years of indulgence with Chinese economy, and they seem to be learning this lesson and applying it in reverse to India. They don't want India to rise and challenge US monopoly of economy, of politics, etc. So that is cause number one. Second cause I would have is the Russia-related issue. They won't go direct to Russia and impose sanctions on Russian oil exports. Russia is the second largest exporter of crude in the world. So that will be problematic. That will upset the oil market. So they would rather impose sanctions on India thinking that it's an easy morsel to digest. That's their miscalculation. Thirdly, I think they have their own agenda about MAGA base in United States, wanting greater market access for their inefficient, non-competitive goods to India and elsewhere, and that is where they want to push it. Price open our market, etc. So all that put together forms the kernel of the logic or illogic that Trump has unleashed on India through these tariffs. Thank you, Megha.
Okay, all right. On that note, I'm out of time, but I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast, sharing your views. We'll keep a close eye on these big developments and stay tuned. On the other side, we continue to discuss the tariffs and what is it that the government of India and the economic and business chambers across the country can do to help India Inc. offset the losses that are going to be incurred by them in the coming months because of these penalties imposed by the US administration. Thank you for watching NewsX.